Okay, next up we have the ship designer. I should also note that it's not just ships that are in the ship designer, but there's also structures. As you can see down here, it does also include the defense platform, defense stations, and the fortress structures. Once you have them unlocked, they will appear in here, so you can completely customize them to the way you want. But if you can quite simply play through the game without ever actually coming to this screen. Your ships will be automatically updated depending on the technology that is most prevalent in your empire, and your ships will be upgraded to reflect that, basically. So you never really have to go in here. This is specifically for if you want to custom tailor your ships to do something specific in your empire. So, for example, if I encounter the Prothean Scourge, whatever you like to call them, at the end of the game, having shields on your ships generally does nothing because they have a lot of shield penetration or high shield damaging types of weapons. So normally I would just get rid of these shields and just replace them with additional armor instead. Again, they are weak to kinetic types of weapons, so what I'd actually do is just change my weapon types here to change over to a kinetic based weapon, for example. They are actually, it's Tachyon Lances, come to think of it. I think the most weak to is actually lasers. I do beg your pardon. But you can customize your own ship in here if you decide to. So, for example, they're made up of 3 different components. You can see here I've got the broadside bow, the hangar core, and the broadside stern. If you just click the name up here, you can select a different type of composition if you want. X types are extra large weapon mounts. P are point defense ones. So, for example, if your enemy is using a lot of missiles, you can decide that you want to put a hangar bow on here, and you're going to add point defense. So it means that you'll be able to counter those incoming missiles if you want. It does mean that I'm going to have medium-sized weapons instead of large ones. So you make some sacrifices, but it does give you the access to a hangar, so you can send out your own league of fighters if you wish. You can decide that you're going to play the long-range game, so instead you've decided to equip a artillery bow, so you have just long-range weapons. It's completely your own choice. As you can see here, the broadside bow gives you 4 different options. The hangar core gives you another 4 different options. You can change again depending on your own particular play style. And you can change your broadside stern. Again, 2 different options down here. Invariably, no matter which one you can pick, as you can see down here, you get an access to utility slots. It doesn't actually change throughout which of these 4 I choose. It's going to give me the same type of utility slots, which are these ones down here, which is where you equip your types of shield, your types of energy core, and the types of armor that you're going to use. You also have these A slots, auxiliary controls, essentially. You can click on here and choose something unique to your ship. So, for example, I've researched crystal forged plating on this particular level, where it increases my ship hull points by 10%. You can have another one which increases your combat speed. You can have another which increases, you can have natural hull regeneration on your ship, so they actually repair themselves over time. You just can customize it completely to how you desire. You're given a summary, of course, down here, which is pretty self-explanatory. The cost of actually constructing the ship, the build time, how many ticks it will essentially take to build your ship, the ongoing maintenance cost for your ship, the power cost. When it comes to stats, power is obviously, depending on how many power units you have down here, will reflect on how many weapons you can equip, what types of navigation systems you can use. Completely up to yourself. You need to balance it out the best way that you wish. For example, I may decide that I want this ship to be specialized in shields, so I take off all the armor and then rebalance it with shields and additional power reactors. Armor, again, you can see it as a physical numerical value, and as well as a percentage value. So this ship has 87% damage reduction based on the amount of armor it has. The fact it's a battleship gives me a base amount of 80 armor, and then I've added neutronium armor, this armor here, which actually brings it up by another 64 points, and basically means as soon as I start taking armor damage, the damage is reduced by 87%. Shields in battle will actually recharge after the battle. Once you wait a few seconds, you can then get in another battle when your shields will either be fully recharged or half recharged. They have quite significant power usage. As you can see, it's 50 there. In comparison, armor actually uses no energy whatsoever. It uses no power at all. So you can decide how you want to handle that. You can have really high armor ships, but obviously they're not going to regenerate and repair themselves as quickly as shields will after a fight, especially if you haven't got either living metal as a strategic resource is up here, which repairs your ships, or having regenerative hull tissue on your ships, which will give you a repairing hull on your ship. It's completely up to yourselves. Again, it's just down to customizing how you want to deal with it. Evasion, unfortunately, as it is a battleship, they're not very evasive. They are huge ships. If I go to, for example, a transport ship, a science ship, a colony ship, a constructor ship, anything that's smaller will have a higher amount of evasion. Evasion, as you can see, it's only 14% on this ship, but you can completely avoid any damage whatsoever if your evasion is high. So corvettes, when they're very early on in the game, they're very light and nimble ships. Having a high amount of evasion means that they're going to take no damage at all, but when they do take damage, invariably they die. So they're just great at dodging shots, but then obviously, as I say, once they do take damage, they do generally die. These ships, huge ships, they're not so great at evading. It has a 14% chance to evade, so it will, it will dodge a portion of the ship, the incoming damage, but not all of it. Combat speed, as you can see, is the speed the ship decides how quick if it maneuvers when not using FTL travel, and is increased by the thruster component when equipped. When moving a fleet, the slowest ship will limit the maximum speed. So when you have a large fleet altogether, so for example, all my ships are all together at the moment, they're just going to move as fast together as the slowest ship in the fleet. So it'll always maintain formation based on the slowest ship in the fleet. Generally, I don't have a higher combat speed. I don't see a massive need for it. Normally, my ships are where they need to be. But again, you may decide that if you have one massive fleet, that you want to have a high combat speed so you can engage as quickly as possible. Again, I don't generally bother with it. Damage, you can see here, based on all of these types of weapons, it will change this damage value. If I mouse over any of these weapons, you can see it gives me the stats for that particular weapon. So at the moment, this has a range of 100. It has 0% tracking, so it will hit. That tracking is, there is accuracy, as you can see there. It's actually at 70%, but it doesn't track very well. So it's great at hitting objects that aren't moving, objects that haven't got a high amount of evasion, structures or other battleships. It's great at hitting. It has a cooldown, so it only fires once every 8 seconds, and it shows you how much damage that it does. It also shows you, as you can see in the green text, ignores 20% of armor and has a 33% increased amount of shield damage. Each one of these will have something unique. So this one ignores 10% of armor damage. This one has got no unique value. This one does 200% increased damage to shields. So again, it's just balancing your ship around. If you leave the system to do it by itself, that's also absolutely fine. As you can see, the ships will actually automatically complete and automatically upgrade based on your research. So for example, if you've done a lot of energy weapon research, chances are your ships are going to be very energy weapon based. I haven't done a lot of kinetic based weapon damage research, so my ships are very kinetic focused. You have a couple of other values, special values. Oh, mine has increased sensor range. Again, this is just a technological research. You may have something unique for yourself as a organic empire or as a machine empire. They may have something unique and it will appear in the special values window. There's a couple of other things on here. You can create your own custom ship and then name it whatever you like. You can randomize the name if you want. Doesn't matter. For example, if I made the anti-Prethran ships, I can make this as a separate ship, and then when it went to my home world, as you can see here, I've actually got 2 types of battleship listed here for that sole reason. These ships were designed to counter my in-game crisis event, whereas these ones are actually upgraded to be the best all-round ships that are available to me. Last but not least is the auto upgrade function. As you can see, automatically upgrades components to a higher level when they are unlocked. Just what this means is once as it quite rightly says, for example, if I develop a increased level of shields, so for example these are level 5, if I was to theoretically level up to level 6, this design will just be automatically changed to include level 6, so all future designs or all future ships that are built are designed and built with level 6 shields, for example. And the auto upgrade function just means that they will be automatically upgraded. Quite simple. And that is the entire ship designer screen.